let me talk on the main issue of invitation, no invitation for the former president. I think that was unfortunate. To the worst, I think it was a breach of protocol, because I am part of the planning committee of the independence celebration. I'm aware that over a week ago, the former president was listed above the normal man as one of the people who was going to be invited to the commemoration. First, it was the insignia and awards ceremonies, and then we had confirmation that the other presidents were coming. And just a few days ago, so there was some clamor to get everybody that should be on the table invited, and that was done through the diplomatic protocol. I don't know what happens, what snafus happened. According to him, he didn't get it until the late hour. But as a statesman, one would expect that you would overlook. You have been there before. You know that some breach of protocols occur, but to an extent that. A whole longish press release was issued, and instead of us concerning ourselves with the breach of protocols, and we dabbled into the political conflagrations that exist in our country, that was unfortunate. You know.
Yes, subscribe. You always dey watch we program them, but you not subscribe yet to the channel. All wetin you get for do, press this red subscribe button, and then you come over here and press this bell. To the bell option, press this one with all. And done. And no get for cost you anything. When you do this, na sign for show say you dey support we for make we do more. Thank you for we don help we for share this program. Yeah, God bless you.
Well, coming up in today's edition of the program, we continue the conversation on Sierra Leone's 60th independence anniversary commemoration, and of course President Bio's Independence Day speech. We'll also be speaking to Kalilu Tutangi, who's the chairman for the National Council for Civic Education and Development, and as well lawyer Rashid Dumboyer, who is the executive director of LegalLink.
And we're also expecting to have the Renaissance Movement, who will be hosting their first annual summit today on the theme Sierra Leone at 60. What have we earned and what needs to change?
Well, there's more in today's edition of the program, which you can be a part of just by dropping your comments on our Facebook page. I see the comments already. Pop in already. All right, well, today, as always, the show is brought to you by Raquel Commercial Bank. The quote today says that if we are able to stop begging for money, if we can take care of ourselves, then African leaders will have a voice that is forceful and will be listened to.
And we want to encourage our viewers as well. You can send us your quotes. You can send your quotes in case, you can drop it on our Facebook page. We'll definitely go through them and get the best one and mention your name in the program as well. And that quote comes from the president, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, President of the Republic of Sierra Leone.
I love that.
Yes, that's
what we're talking about.
That's about it.
He understands. He knows, he understands.
Exactly. But with that, let's take a quick message from our sponsor.
All right, welcome back. That was a break and a bit of a message from our sponsor, Raquel Commercial Bank. As always, we're broadcasting.
We should congratulate the MD of Raquel Commercial Bank.
Oh yes, he was one of the awardees. Yeah. So you see, you need if you want business growth, if you want profit increase, if you want presidential awards and recognition,
you should do business with AYB.
Do business with AYB. I mean, haven't you seen all the good things happening to Raquel Commercial Bank since they started, partnering with us on Wake Up? So if you're a business person and you like what you're hearing about Raquel Commercial Bank, that could be you.
You might be
but
the
you're
next
sitting on that
presidential
money.
awardee next year.
Exactly, but you're sitting on that money and you don't want to spend it. So spend it and, you know, and thank us later. And of course, as always, we're broadcasting on Radio 101.7 FM. Be a part of the conversation. I know it's already popping. For those of you watching, head on to our Facebook page, the Africa Young Voices Media Empire, and drop it there. If we can, we'll read them. All right, so we start the conversation. Well, Sir Milton Augustus Bai, my guy, was a Sierra Leonean doctor and politician who served as the head of government from 1954 until his death in 1964. He was titled Chief Minister from 1954 to 1960, and then Prime Minister from 1961 onwards. Many people, of course, have been asking about the children of the first Prime Minister of the Republic of Sierra Leone. For this special 60th Independence Anniversary edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone, Albert George Sheriff caught up with Sally Magai, one of the daughters of the late Prime Minister, in an exclusive interview where she reminisced the visit of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II of England.
Who was Milton?
Well, he was my father. The first Prime Minister of Sierra Leone was my father.
What was his profession?
He was a medical doctor.
What was the name of the wife of the first Prime Minister?
The late Gladys Magai.
How many children did she give birth to for Sir Milton?
2, Doreen Smith and Joyce Upai.
How many of these children are still alive and how many of them are dead?
Well, I have other siblings, other parents. We are 7. 2 are dead. That's Louisa Logan and Betty Kamara, Mrs. Kamara. And I had one adopted sister, Miriam Magai. And because I didn't know that she was my actual sister until I was in the university. So I always think that's my actual sister.
How old were your independence in 1927 and 1960?
That's about 3.5 years.
What was your memory moment in that time?
Well, I think it's me presenting the bouquet to the Queen and running away because there was thunderous applause. I got frightened, so I had to run away. I went back to my mom, Sally Rogers. So I had to stay there because I was afraid. I think that's one thing I noticed, because I was so excited or a bit frightened, really, seeing people all around the streets. And you know, it's certain things, you remember certain things when you're young. But that's one of the things I can remember vividly. People lining up the streets for the Queen. I going to Queen Elizabeth. In those days, we call it water key.
So Her Majesty the Queen of England visited Sierra Leone shortly after independence. In what year did she visit Sierra Leone?
Well, it's in between, because it was not a short visit. But she spent some time here. It's November 25 to December 1st. Yes, there was celebration here in the provinces. There were bouquets of flowers presented to her, cultural dances, and many other things presented to her. So I wasn't present in the provinces, I was only here. So I can't tell you detail what's happened. But I know it's a cultural thing. The cultural thing took place, and there were so many things I cannot tell you all.
Did any of your siblings get into national politics?
Yes. So many Magais are in politics. But one notable one is Charles Magai. We come from the same family. My father is the elder brother of the late Sir Abbas Bagai, and he's the father of Charles Bagai. So he's my cousin.
There are so many institutions established named after Samiti Magai. So how are the Magais going to keep that legacy alive and to also add on those institutions or some monuments that will be set up to just remember Samiti Magai for the great work that he did, more especially being the very first Prime Minister of Sierra Leone?
What I can say, we have started and we are going to continue to do the best we can to help those organizations and to do things in the name of our father, Samiti Magai. But people should not say he didn't do much because his time was very short. And most people who are talking that are very young. They don't know about the history of Sierra Leone. You understand? What he did in a short time is commendable. His politics was pure. He didn't victimize people because you express your views or that or anything. He included everybody in his politics. The paramount chiefs, the northerners, the easterners, the southerners, people in the western area were all included in the cabinet. So nobody would grumble or say that his government was inclusive. Based on what he did, I think time will tell, because he had only short time. Those who have longer period will do much.
Welcome back. Now, this morning, we continue the conversation on Sierra Leone's 60th independence anniversary commemoration or celebration, however you want. Yesterday, President Bio made the Independence Day speech, and also awards were given to individuals at State House, including the visiting heads of states. To discuss all of this, we have been joined by Kalilu Tutange. He's the chairman, National Council of Civic Education and Development. And also we have with us lawyer Rashid Dumbuya. He's executive director of Legal Link. And in our studio too, we expecting to have someone from
the planning committee.
The planning committee of
the
Renaissance Movement Sierra Leone, as they'll be talking about their first annual summit on the theme Sierra Leone at 60. What have we learned and what needs to change? The event will be held today at the Bank Complex, so we'll be discussing that also in the program. But let me come over to two gentlemen here in the studio. Good morning, Kalilu, and good morning, Rashid. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome.
Yes, I'll start with you, Kalilu. The commemoration of independence yesterday, the understanding, the civic understanding of why we should commemorate or celebrate as Sierra Leoneans. As an institution, how much you know, have you done, or what are you doing to let the public understand that yesterday and every other day we need to celebrate as Sierra Leoneans? We need to remember those who sacrificed for our independence and the progress we are making, if we, indeed we are making any as a nation.
Thank you very much for having me. like you mentioned, independence from British colonial rule is something always to remember and to also celebrate. And wherever we find ourselves, whatever penury we might consider ourselves to be in, the realization that considering all that we went through in the hands of the British for over 130 years, the fact that we have been able to have self-rule since 1961 is something to always remember and to celebrate. Now, progress made, yes, there has been progress made because we have been able to maintain our nationhood. We have been able, in spite of all of the challenges that we have faced, we have still been able to maintain ourselves as a nation. We have been able to face our challenges. A lot of them are, but they are not insurmountable. We are grappling with it, and that's the more reason why we should celebrate.
Okay, so like I was asking, I know you've developed civic education curriculum. You've engaged school kids as well. How much have you done so far in these 3 years, you know, in educating Sierra Leoneans about being responsible, their responsibilities as well, and about civic education generally? What's your focus, and how are you doing that as an institution?
That's a very important question. Don't forget that we started as a boarding institution. I was alone. We have been able to create institutions. Now we have offices all over the regions of this country. We have staff in those regions. Like you mentioned rightly, we have put together a curriculum, which is actually a map that we hope to follow in terms of what we're going to do. We have a strategic plan that we're working on to do things. One of the things that we think we have achieved so far is that now we have been able to get back civics as a subject of learning and teaching in schools. And in that curriculum and in those books that we have created, we have looked at the history of this country, not only the history of this country, the people who came before us, what they did to achieve independence, and some of the things that we should admire about ourselves as a country, and what are our roles and responsibilities as citizens, and that's what we are teaching to our children now. In addition to that, we are having engagements in communities on what government is doing, how they can also add their voice to what the government is doing in a more creative and responsible way. So yes, it's a long journey that we have started with a single step. Even over this commemoration period, what we did is we took about 30 schools all over this country, where we brought them in a national quiz competition, where we drew up 400 questions based on the civic education textbooks in the middle school level, that's the junior school level, which is a way of getting the children to understand about their country without having them in the classroom. Okay. So we are very impressed with what the kids came out with, because in the 1 week period we gave to them, they were able to internalize the materials that we give to them, and they brought a very competitive quiz competition, which is a way of getting them to love their country, to understand things about their country without the rigors of the classroom setting. Okay.
With the kids, you engage in them, but let's come to the issue of national cohesion and your role possibly as an institution. You know, in past few days or say weeks, we've had a lot of tension in the build-up to the commemoration of this independence anniversary. And also we had about invitation and not invitation for the former vice president, which also added to the tension between the main opposition party and that of the ruling government. But as an institution, where do you come in issues like this, in issues of addressing national cohesion, where people would see National Day as independence as a day where we celebrate irrespective of their differences, especially politicians?
Let me talk on the main issue of invitation, no invitation for the former president. I think that was unfortunate. To the worst, I think it was a breach of protocol, because I am part of the planning committee of the independence celebration. I'm aware that over a week ago, the former president was listed above the normal man as one of the people who was going to be invited to the commemoration. First, it was the insignia and award ceremonies, and then we had confirmation that the other presidents were coming. And just a few days ago, so there was some clamor to get everybody that should be on the table invited, and that was done through the diplomatic protocol. I don't know what happens, what snafus happened. According to him, he didn't get it until the late hour. But as a statesman, one would expect that you would overlook. You have been there before, you know that some breach of protocols occur. But to an extent that a whole longish press release was issued, and instead of us concerning ourselves with the breach of protocols, and we dabbled into the political conflagrations that exist in our country, that was unfortunate. You know, and as far as
our role, you also agree that it was unfortunate that he had to get a call.
Where he said he got a call from
according to them,
they got a call from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who are actually responsible for protocol in this country. But the overwhelming thing that went on social media and in some circles, that there was some deliberate political ploy to underlook him or to take away from his stature as a former president, I think that was unfortunate. From where I sit, my vantage point, that I was part of the planning committee, and I knew exactly what happened. There was no effort at all to slight the former president. In fact, there were efforts to ensure that he would be there to add credence to all of this.
Are you saying that he was invited a week before, like you've mentioned?
No, I am not saying he was invited a week before. I'm saying to the formal insignia ceremony, he was one of the priority invitations that was supposed to be issued. Now, the issue came of this president. They confirmed their presence here later in the game. And about 3 or 4 days ago, that's when we had confirmation of who was coming. And there was an effort now to get people who should be there in the room invited. And the ministry, basically,
those who should be invited, their invitation was based on the confirmation of this presidents that we're going to come in
for the events that he was talking about, the events that involved the presidents that were coming, the foreign dignitaries. That was what they were talking about there. And that invitation, that confirmation of who was coming, what were the events that was going to be held to honor them, came later on, and that is where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was supposed to send out the invitations through the diplomatic channels to the former president and other dignitaries around the country. Now, if they didn't get to him until the last second, as they claim, that was unfortunate. But what I'm saying, in essence, that as a statesman, you have been there before. You know some of the tensions that occur in the last minute of planning. If you get an invitation, a late invitation, you could decline through the same diplomatic channels, or you could accept through the same diplomatic channels. But to take out,
isn't that?
Let me finish my thought.
I know what you're trying to say. That because it shouldn't have come out with a press release, overshadowing the whole event.
They didn't overshadow the whole event, in my view. But what that did, in essence, was to create a political tension.
That is what I want to ask. That is what I want to ask. Is it not, showing that we have an issue to address? This could have, like you said,
there was no issue to address in the first place.
I'm saying, let me just say quickly. I'm saying where everything works properly, you'll expect, like you say, the former president could have come or could have called the same channel and say, no, time is late, I'm not coming. But because they went out publicly to explain their own side, is it not that we have a tension already, showing that we have an issue, we have a tension in
well, that is the unfortunate part of this all. There was one specific invite to attend a decoration of foreign dignitaries. And now and it was sent through a diplomatic channel to a former president who was supposed to be a statesman. Now, he could accept or decline through the same diplomatic channels. What happened was they took out a press release that went and doubled, I would say, into political issues of being slighted. I mean, that was not the essence of that.
That is the concern, that this was made public.
And in the end, they were saying, you should have done this earlier. This is the same thing that is the political divide. The president is being slighted. That was not the essence of that invitation. There are several other avenues or platforms to raise those issues.
But Kalilu, quickly, you'll agree everything's worked properly. We don't have these issues of someone complaining about being slighted or someone thinking that this is all political ploy. The former president could have been, if what they're saying is right, he could have received this invitation as the planning committee gave him that preference. Before now, someone was not going to call at 5 p.m. before they're saying
let me tell you this. If you were where we were, planning in speed towards this thing, you could understand as things like this are not precision science. You understand? And most importantly, if the former president had his gripes on other issues, that was not the moment to express them, and that was not the manner to express them.
Can I ask the visiting presidents, when did they confirm that they were going to be coming?
As as far as my knowledge is concerned, we got some of the confirmations 3 or 4 days ago. By Friday, by Thursday, some of them had indicated their willingness to come.
So there was a confirmation 3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah.
So why did it take, according to the former president, a day before 5 p.m. for him to get the invitation?
We don't even know this.
No, because you've mentioned that the invitation was based on the visiting president. So if they confirmed 3-4 days ago, and the former president was a priority on that list, how could you guys have missed this?
You get this one clear. Before the confirmation of the former president, the foreign presidents coming, and the decoration ceremony that was going to be held for them, there was already a list for the normal insignia and award ceremony that the State House was going to hold, which was like a week or more than a week ago. Okay. And that's what I was talking about. That the former president.
So was the former president
let me finish my thought. Yes, he was part of that. He was part of that.
No, he was officially invited to that event.
Let me go, yes. And the other part I'm saying is, when we got these confirmations on Thursday or Friday thereabout, then there was this issue of him being invited to the decoration ceremony for this visiting president. Now, was it sent to him on Thursday or on Monday at 5 o'clock, as he's claiming? I don't know. That's what you can find out from the
so far the Ministry for Foreign Affairs hasn't come out to.
Well, that's the point. So, but what I'm saying in essence, this was an invitation that was sent to the former president through a diplomatic channel. He can accept or reject through that same channel. But to convolute that discussion with a longish press release, bringing out all of his other gripes on other things, and in the end he says we should have national cohesion, that is not the path to national cohesion.
So he erred in that area.
He erred in, as far as I'm concerned.
And the government
as a statesman is not expected to score political points on a national day. Okay. This is not just any other day. This is a national day that you have been invited to. And you get an invite, according to them, at 5 p.m. And the event was supposed to take place at 11 a.m. Let's even say 11 a.m. the next day. You can say, through the same channels, I cannot make it or I can make it. But to use that as a ploy to bring out a press release only to score political points, that is not what
can I ask, did the government also err in inviting him that late, if indeed it is true?
Yeah, and that is what we have to confirm from the foreign ministry.
But up till now, the foreign ministry hasn't come out with a statement.
That is what we have to confirm. Well, then, I mean, I'm not the foreign ministry.
No, I'm saying, it's over 20...
All of what we are saying is
it's
assumptions.
Over 24 hours.
If it is assumed, let us even say that is true. To the worst of it, is a breach of protocol.
Which means it's an error.
Someone should take responsibility.
But that's you can ask who should take responsibility.
No, I'm asking you as an individual, as a Sierra Leonean yourself. You've given your opinion on the side of the former president.
If it's a breach of protocol, someone should take responsibility to it. But does it elevate to a level of taking out a press statement that convolutes the discussion and brings out the divide and accentuates the divide? Oh, they have not invited me. They are trying to slight me. This is the same thing they are doing. That is not what one expects of a system.
So
I'm talking about. Let me finish my thought. Talking about national cohesion. Somebody in that stature is supposed to play a bigger role than a little boy like me in civic education. Okay. And conduct like that does not bode well for the national cohesion.
That is exactly what I want to ask Kalilu. The issue of what happened, this press statement, the spirit of it, is it not showing that we have a very critical issue of not being able to bring our political leaders together? We've been talking about national cohesion. On Friday, the President Bio spoke about national cohesion. On Sunday, he spoke about it. Yesterday, he mentioned it also. And even the Ghanaian president mentioned it. Yeah. Is it not that we have a fundamental problem about bringing our political leaders together?
And that is where somebody has to be a grown-up. If the sitting president is talking about national cohesion and is making as much as an effort to invite the former president, however late that invite arrives at his doorstep, and one would have thought as a statesman is to try as much as possible, except where there are situations where you cannot meet it. And that way you do is through the same diplomatic channels, but to open a Pandora's box, accentuating that divide, saying, as a matter of fact, I'm not coming because I have been spited. That is not what one expects from a statement.
So
now somebody has to be a grown-up. Unfortunately,
so the expectation is that this divide that you say he has brought to the fore.
I didn't say he has brought a divide. He has brought it to the fore.
Yes. This divide he has brought to the fore would have been better kept under the carpet, and we just continue to pretend like it's not. That's not what I'm suggesting.
The moment was not right. And the moment was not right for it. This was not about whether someone has a gripe or not.
So when would have been the right moment?
This is about honoring or not honoring an invite to a National Day commemoration. Now, for a former president, if you don't have any political points to score, is to say through the same diplomatic channels, no, I cannot come because I have a headache. No, I cannot come.
What if someone will use it to score a political point against him that he was invited and
he didn't show up?
But that is the point. That is the more reason why a former president who is supposed to be a statesman should elevate the discussions above pertinence like, I didn't come because I've been spited.
Quick question. I know your agency, you have political parties, leaders of political parties sitting at the board, I understand.
Yeah.
Situations like this, issues like this issue of political tension 3 years down the line now, before now, even when former President Koroma was in governance, we have issues of national cohesion and divide. Where do you come in to address issues like this? We've been discussing this for far too long.
Yeah, we have. And that is the unfortunate part of all of this, that people who are really supposed to know better, people who are supposed to rise above the fray, should immerse themselves in that fray. That is a situation. Now, government has gone as far as passing a legislation to have a whole commission on national cohesion. And that is in the remit of that kind of commission. What I am doing in my own institution is to educate people of Sierra Leone, the young and the old alike, to understand that there's so much that we have in common than we have.
And the older the politicians,
yes.
How do you educate them?
Well, that's what we're doing. We are doing public forums. In the last several weeks, we have done town hall meetings about the role of parliamentarians, so that communities can understand what parliamentarians to do as juxtaposed to what councillors should do. So we have our own work plan that we are following. Now, the National Commission for Cohesion, when it would have been peopled by the commissioners, they have their own role cut out for them to talk about national cohesion.
So can I ask, is there a plan to engage? Because clearly, with the themes unfolding, this civic education is needed more, not just by the everyday Joe, but by the political class. Is there a program that is going to target them in this issue? Because clearly it seems they are the ones who need the civic education.
Absolutely, more than anybody else. Already we are working with the Westminster Foundation for Democracy in Parliament through the Open Government Partnership Program for us to see where we have the commonalities, and for us to engage, for Parliament to engage civil society in agenda setting in Parliament, some of the things that they should be talking about in Parliament. This is the work that we are doing. That is the kind of work that we have put in our strategic plan. Now that we know that there is a commission for national cohesion, which is set apart from what we are doing. Now, our own work is basically going to be engagement and education in the area of saying, let people understand that there's more that we can work on together as Sierra Leoneans, that we can focus on.
We'll come back to you. It's past 9. It's past 9. We need to take a summary of the news. Rashid has been silent for too long. We'll come to him shortly. Let's take a summary of the news. We'll be coming right back to continue the discussion. Keep watching.
Sierra Leone marks 60 years of independence.
Fellow citizens, today we commemorate 60 years of our country's independence. We do so by reflecting on the vision,
great sacrifice and courage of those who led and those who helped them lead, and those who embraced their leadership to usher in our sovereignty as an independent nation and the Commonwealth. 60 years ago, Sir Milton Magai admonished citizens of the newly independent Sierra Leone to face up squarely to the problems which we confront Sierra Leoneans. He urged commitment to wholehearted service and hard work in order to make our country a land worth living in and a land worth serving. He further called on Sierra Leoneans to deal fairly and honestly with their fellow men, strive actively for peace, friendship, and unity, and to discourage lawlessness. Over 60 years, we have learned to live together as a nation. We are a global model for religious tolerance. We intermarry and cohabit peacefully in our towns and villages. We have had military coups and repressive single-party dictatorships, but we have consolidated one of the sturdiest multi-party democracies in Africa. We fought a bloody civil war for a decade, but we made and we have had enduring peace for over 2 decades since. For all the other challenges we have faced as a nation, from pestilence and natural disasters, near collapse of institutions and our economy, mismanagement of our natural resources and our environment, corruption and bad governance, the lack of justice and equal access to opportunity, especially for women and youth, for other perceived cleavages in our nation, we have emerged stronger, tougher, and more resilient every time.
AgSlab dissociates itself from viral video of soldiers making political statements. And Speaker of ECOWAS Parliament awarded Commander of the Order of the Republic of Sierra Leone.
Right Honorable Dr. Sidi Mohammed Tunis. Honors you with insignia of the Sierra Leone, extensive public service as a Member of Parliament, especially now with your leadership as Speaker of the Sub-Regional Parliament, where you've initiated groundbreaking policies. Right Honorable Dr. Sas, Commander of the Order.
Welcome back. Still with us here in the program is Rashid Dumbuya, Executive Director for Legal Link, Kalilu Tutange from the Civic Education, the National Council for Civic Education and Development. So moving over now to you, Rashid. You literally heard the conversation. Would love to hear your take on this issue.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I'm grateful. Maybe to hasten to make a disclaimer, I'm not really here in terms of looking at the political issues. I think I'm here to represent the voice of the civil society and also the people of Sierra Leone. All right, so let me hasten to put that disclaimer. We should be grateful to God. I mean, 60 years is something we should be thankful for. And more so, it met us as a stable nation. You know, we are still a post-conflict, society, but we've managed, you know, since 2002 when the war officially, you know, ended, you know, to still hold the balance and not revert back to, you know, a war situation. So we should be grateful. And of course, we thank God again. Yesterday, everything went well. There were so much apprehensions. People were afraid, thinking something will happen. You know, and yesterday I was even out deliberately on some media stations calling on youth to behave themselves, let the day pass in peace. We deserve this. People should not come out. There are people who are thinking of coming out or just disrupt the entire event. So we are grateful to God. And I think this is the right time to perhaps look back and then evaluate and see whether in fact what went wrong in terms of how we had wanted it. You know, I note the words being used in many press releases, commemoration. I think I would have loved to say celebration. So maybe that's something we have to watch and see. It ought to have been a celebration, not necessarily a commemoration. That's what I'm seeing in many, many press releases. So I just watched the clip you showed. I mean, when the Queen came here, you know, and the gallantry, the pomp and pageantry, we note in even the National Stadium, everybody. So as if you can see the whole nation celebrating. So perhaps these are the kind of things we may want to see going forward in celebrations of independence and everybody on board. It was a missed opportunity, this rancor with the former president. Up till now, we're seeing the tension increasing. And like he rightly acknowledged, there were errors in protocol in terms of getting him the decision on time. And whether he reacted or overreacted against other kettle of fish, I'm sure a spokesperson for this party will come and perhaps be the best one to talk about that. But then what we are concerned about is, like you rightly mentioned, is about the national cohesion, which is still like an albatross on the neck of our nation. And it's not new. You know, even prior to the celebration, there were so much tensions, and you can sense the build-up, the divide, the acrimony, the bitterness. So even prior to the event, you know, it was not a smooth situation in our country. And there were so many opportunities that people will come out. You know, the killings, police brutality, the bike rider issue, the political parties cop their press releases about so many things. So we did not even, you know, get as a nation a smooth, you know, period prior to the celebration. In fact, many of us were, kind of taken aback about the number of presidents that we are coming. You know, it's like many people never knew until maybe 2 or 3 days to the event. You know, and I don't know why that was kept. You know, perhaps again for the build-up, the tensions, and all of these things. So, and these were key personalities, you know, coming into our nation. Assuming things were really fine prior to the celebration, I'm sure this would have been a good opportunity. See people on the streets enjoying themselves, taking a ride, see nation building, people are happy. But that was a missed opportunity. Yes, the formal ceremony went on well, but for one to come and say really the people celebrated yesterday in terms of the numbers, the street parades, you know, the stadium and all the pomp and pageantry, I think that was missing. And you can see that the chairman of ECOWAS picked it up. That's why in his statement, he made that call that please, this should be the time for unity in Sierra Leone, and everyone should come on board to make sure the unity.
But given this tension that you've just mentioned, the whole tension, political tension that we've seen over time, even up until a few days to the independence, couldn't the former president have equally sort of not further fanned the flame of this political disunity amongst the political class? Just like Kalilu has mentioned, he was invited through a channel. He could have used that same channel to convey his absence, rather than bring it up to the social media, to further create more contention and confusion. As a statement, couldn't he have followed that option?
Honestly, it was a legitimate point he raised. I think when I also saw it, on the wave, I was like, oh my God, it took us almost everyone aback, you know, and I was like, oh my God. So indeed, we cannot downplay that perhaps overreaction, But then let's not forget also, on the flip side, I think he has been very quiet. I mean, we have to give also that accolade to him. He's been very quiet. There are so many things that have happened in the nation that he's been, in fact, his party, there are many people who are even blasting for him that he's not effective. He's not been saying anything. All right, so I don't know, maybe that was the opportunity to seize, perhaps to say, okay, this is too far a stretch, and let me come out openly and let it, but I think that was an overstretch to some extent, given the fact that, you know, our nation is one that is so gullible in terms of the political divide. And many people, I'm sure, saw that and really took to making the decision that, in fact, they will not even participate and even stay home and just see the whole celebration as something else. But then here is what I want to emphasize, which I'm sure, I hope everybody's listening to me in the government, that we have to build the institution of former presidency. We are not doing that at the moment. Every president is a potential former president. And whether you like it or not, our constitution tells you when you should leave. So if we don't seize the opportunity now to build that infrastructure, it's quite new because I think it's the only living, democratically elected, I mean, you know, president, former president. All right, it's the only living one. So we have other, I mean, soldiers who came to power. Sasa is still alive. But we're talking about democratically elected. So how do we build that infrastructure, that institution, so that anybody that comes, when His Excellency Justice Bio retires, all right, and he comes to that position, how do we now ensure that there are frameworks that protects that office so that we can use that office for nation building? It's currently being used internationally, than nationally. It's a disgrace to us. This man is being used internationally, and it's not being used nationally.
But does he want to be used? Does he want to contribute to nation building?
Yes. So
as a statesman, it behoves him to take priority over Sierra Leone as opposed to international. So is he willing to be a part of this national development?
These are the questions. And he just said, again, he's a political person. He's a politician. So you see, so these are the things we are now clogged with him. So what is happening? How do we now create frameworks? And until we have frameworks that sets the parameters clear, that when you are retiring to this, these are the things we expect you to be doing. A whole office, a whole budget perhaps can even be given to former presidency office to be helping the nation building, taking the nation higher, lobbying, ensuring that we have
But even without a budget, he is the former president. And there are certain things that are required of him as a statesman, which in many cases, a lot of people have said he has failed to do.
Yes.
So where do we draw the line? Where do we begin to ask him to play his role as a statesman, a statesman as opposed to being a politician, like Kalilu have mentioned?
And that will be facilitated, and I bet you, if there are effective policy frameworks that builds on that office. For now, we don't have much. We're just hanging on his goodwill. All right? When you retire, come on board. But if there are frameworks that says this is exactly what you are going to expect to do, and when you don't do, the frameworks will now point to say, oh no.
Him refusing to attend. His office is saying he was invited at 5, but he stays at McKinney. Let's imagine he stays at McKinney, and like everyone is saying, he's a statesman who can drive, come to Freetown and attend, show that national symbol. Don't you think he's on his part? There is also this area where he's creating tension, not wanting to compromise or even accept that he's a statesman who needs to play a part for national cohesion?
Yeah, so as CSOs representing the people, we expected and we would have wished him to have been there amidst all the odds. That's our expectation, and it would have been so good to see the former president in this celebration. But human beings differ. You know, he's expressed what he thinks perhaps offended him in everything that was done. We, on our part, like he rightly said, we will have wished that despite all of this, he still said, okay, notwithstanding,
did he miss? Right. Did he miss?
It was a missed opportunity.
I mean, for the former president, did he miss the opportunity to probably engage with the president? Because we've heard the presidents clearly say they are not friends, but they speak. But to have this one-on-one conversation, we know what that means. We know how far that can go. So did he miss that opportunity, in spite of being invited. Like Lamrana has said, he's just a few hours away. He could have been the bigger one. He could have been the statement that he is, and just show up there for the interest of Sierra Leone.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. In fact, both parties missed the opportunity. That's the truth. Our government missed by sending to him at the wrong time in terms of the
when is the wrong time for a statesman?
No, let me finish, please. I've just said both parties missed. I'm not a politician here. Now, the government was wrong, and we should say it, like he said it earlier, to have delayed the invitation. It's a big person in the nation. Let's be clear about that. You cannot forget that kind of person.
Yeah.
That was wrong, and you cannot hide from that. It was also not correct to have also cascaded the way I agree with him on that. He could have rejected 2 channels to say, okay, like you come, I'm telling you. And when the time comes to say, okay, why we are not there, discussion, then perhaps a spokesperson from his office will have just explained the issues. That's what the right time to have explained it. So I also fault the office of the
I want to ask.
But let me just bring this point clear. This point is very key. So as we fault both people, let's also be clear that there are underlying intentions, which I'm sure we are all evading here.
That is what I want. That is actually what I want to ask. We talk a lot about national cohesion.
Yes.
You know, before now, even if you read the TRC report, there are areas where it's mentioned issues of how we need national cohesion, how it affected us, how it caused war in this country. We're talking a lot about it, and we do not seem to be doing it. Yes. What's the problem with that?
Yes, so it's one, I think it's the sincerity, and to me, there are lessons we should have learned from even the Kenyan issue. The Kenyan issue is live before us. What Raila Odinga did to Uhuru Kenyatta while he was president, I'm sure no other president will really take that. That was an effort. That was treason. Raila Odinga coronated himself as president while Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, democratically elected. Before his face, he went to a whole ceremony, called some lawyers who acted as chief justice, and they coronated him as president. The army was ready to finish them all. That was treason at the highest degree. Uhuru Kenyatta restrained himself and waited. He finished his ceremony. And just 1 week later, they invited him to have a breakfast together in the office of the president. That dissipated the tension. People were just saying, people were thinking, what is this? He said, I will have done anything to you, but I think this will help Kenya. Let's move behind this. Until today, that's finished Odinga. He's quiet in Kenya. And Uhuru Kenyatta is having a field day. All right, so there are ways we have to do this. Look, the president and the former president, that tension is not helping.
Is there really a tension? Is there really a tension? Because, hold on. Is there really a tension? Because here is the president. It is not his duty to be inviting people. There are people who are appointed. You know, for example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think, like Kalilu has mentioned, it is their duty to follow through on that protocol.
Yes.
Do you understand? And obviously, the president is not going to be micromanaging the people he has appointed. So is there really a tension between both individuals, or is it those around that are actually basically putting out this seeming tension between the individuals?
I want to believe maybe it's maybe quite apparent than real, but we had our president, all right, and there were opportunities where I'm sure that would have been dissipated, but the statement that came in, many people also perceived that at the very least some problems are here, all right, to say, well, we're not friends and I'm not sure we'll be friends, all right. It was a frank statement, I mean, but how people misconstrued that, how people thought about that, interpreted that is something different. And then we've now seen the former president also in his press release not only rejecting perhaps the invitation, but giving some reasons and going much more in terms of unity and all that. So, so let's don't hide from it. I think this is an opportunity for the nation as a whole.
To
now understand that there are tensions.
Let me just make
quickly 1 minute. Did this issue overshadow the whole essence of the
celebration?
Commemoration?
No, I think the celebration went well. I think it went well.
Did it overshadow it in the sense that we are celebrating being Sierra Leoneans, being united, being free?
Yes.
Did this overshadow it? Did this question what we are celebrating?
Yeah, well, to some extent it did, because many people took a position, and you can sense in the nation that people really, did not come out as they should to celebrate. And then also, the dignitaries picked it up, that came, and you can hear from the statement of the chairperson of ECOWAS that it's time for unity of the nation. All right, so we cannot downplay that, but I think it didn't overshadow it in a way that affected perhaps the...
Okay, let me make a few clarifications here. One, the program was meant to be a low-key from day one. Okay. And this is not, the president has said that he will not feel free to celebrate. That is spending tons of money and getting a lot of people out there in celebratory mood of our independence until he has set himself a milestone, until he reaches that milestone in terms of economic development. You remember we're in austerity when he came, and he thinks he should dig us out of the hole before he can do that. That's number one. That's number one thing. Second, we all know that these are not normal times in terms of even the pandemic. So it was not planned to be a big celebration. Big so that's why we didn't even go to stadium, we didn't go to other things. So that was how it was actually planned, to be low key. Okay. And second, whether
on the third now.
On the third, thank you for reminding me. On the issue of the former president, I understand it doesn't bode well, and it didn't bode well for all of the celebration. It would have been even good if he was there for us to show a national face. But the key elephant in the room is the fact that the former president is refusing to be what he should be. Now, a statesman. We cannot have a former president who should have all of the respect that is due him, giving all of that up only to continue to be a president. To what purpose? Does he want to run another time in office? It's not going to happen in this country. So one would expect that a man of his stature should rise above the fray, be a former politician, a former president, then everything that is due him is going to come back to him. Okay. Look at what happened to President Kaba. He was there, nobody even knew he would get into his car and drive. And President Koroma, he has age on his side, he's still vibrant. He can go around and do a number of things if only he wants to be a statesman. Please, as civil society and all of us, let us advise him, get out of politics and play the role that we need you to do, so that you can advise those politicians and be the elder brother, the big man in the room, so that we can get to this national cohesion. Are you saying that
he's not being accorded the respect he deserves because he's still chairman of his party, so it's all deliberate?
I'm not suggesting that. The reason why he is trying to score political points is because he still sees himself as a politician. Okay. If he is getting out of this, he will just allow stuff like that to be behind the back.
All right.
Let's move to our studio 2. We have a lady who's been waiting for a very long time, listening to politics. Let's move on with the discussion. We have Terry with us in the studio. She is a member of the planning committee of Renaissance Movement. They'll be having the first annual summit today on the theme, Sierra Leone at 60. What have we learned and what needs to change? Good morning, Terry, and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited being here today.
I know. Sorry we kept you this long before we could get to you. But so, Renaissance Movement and the summit today, after the celebration yesterday, what's the objective?
Okay, so the Renaissance Movement, of course, it's a movement of patriotic Sierra Leoneans, and a movement that's as well open to patriotic Sierra Leoneans who are dedicated and committed towards inspiring a changed Sierra Leonean society. Amidst all the challenges, we believe that we can become better when we are united as a people, and when we fix our eyes on the common goal of, national cohesion and, rights, and understanding that each of our rights go with responsibilities. So, as you rightly said, this is going to be our first summit, wherein we'll take a time to ask ourselves the question: Sierra Leone has turned 60 since it gained independence in 1961. What do we have to show for it? Where have we missed it? And how can we create the force to get it right? Which is very important because, you know, we've been having a lot of conversations about where we're going as a nation or as a people. But for us, what we're going to be very particular about is how we can source out the solutions from different shades of people, which is why we're going to be having students, we're going to be having politicians, we're going to be having civil society actors. You know, all of these people we hope to tap from what their frank opinions or views are in re-strategizing and rebranding Sierra Leone at 60.
Taria, what would be different about this conversation? Because there have been various roundtable, frank talk discussions about Sierra Leone, the problems, where we are now, what we need or ought to do to advance Sierra Leone forward. This is discussions that are basically not new. So what sets this particular conversation different?
Yeah, of course. Like I also mentioned, we've been having several conversations on Sierra Leone and the way forward. So the reason why I mentioned that we're going to be having different sets of people among is to particularly challenge those people as to how we can map out the right strategies as a people. And how do we commit to those strategies? Because, I mean, we understand that our leaders are the frontliners in terms of driving change. We've signed the social contract with them, but also we have to look inwardly as the citizenry. Like, how do we make our actions count? Yeah, how do we do what we're supposed to do and not do what we aren't supposed to do? Yeah, because at Renaissance we believe that Sierra Leone can be rebuilt and can be remade with our collective efforts. So it's going to be a mixed bag of different opinions, views from Sierra Leoneans, and even when you look at our panels, these are notable and respectable people who have contributed immensely towards fostering national cohesion and national conversations.
Right. The Renaissance movement has been there for quite a while, but has, for some reason, been quite dormant for a considerable period. Is this sort of a rebirth of the movement? Is this a reawakening of the movement?
Well, I'm not sure the Renaissance movement has really been dormant because, like always, we have been raising our voices to issues concerning social justice, social issues, about concerning the citizenry. In fact, the recent spate, the high spate of domestic violence, violence against civilians, police brutality, we released a couple of press releases, to speak truth to power and see how we can encourage relevant authorities to take the right step in protecting the citizens of the country. So, of course, we have always been there, and of course, the Renaissance movement has a structure which it goes by, and for us, we're taking a people-centered approach. So
who are the speakers at the event?
Oh, okay. So we're going to be having. I'm going to be one of the speakers,
okay,
as a Sierra Leonean youth and an unapologetic feminist. And of course, we're going to be having Dr. Bernadette Lahai, who is a very reputable and outstanding woman leader Sierra Leone has ever produced. And we're also going to be having the Anti-Corruption Commissioner, Francis Ben Kelfala, who happens to be one of our founding members. And also we're going to have We're going to have other contributors from different political parties. Yeah,
okay.
APC, SLPP, the NGC, and of course it's going to be hosted by Asma James and Wanjami Bai.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the outcome of this discussion, like Stella was saying, you know, we've had a lot of discussions, roundtable. What will it inform, and especially with the team, about the change we want to see as a nation?
Okay. So at the end of the day, like I said, we want to see citizens, participants advance solutions, the way out. So at the end of the day, we hope to use these opinions to influence policies, and not only do that, and also to ensure that these policies pay attention to due implementation. Because if citizens emphasize, let's say if the participants are going to emphasize more on national cohesion, how do we, so it means we're going to be engaging more of our state actors, our authorities, like how can they foster national cohesion in not only words, but in action. The good thing is we've deliberated, the two gentlemen have deliberated extensively on the issue of national cohesion. How do we get our leaders to put the nation's interest above their personal interests or political interests? We've been having these conversations, like Stella said, but we have not, especially our leaders, they have not been, you know, living up to the expectations. They've not been the role models we expect them to be. So we are very optimistic. We're very optimistic that the solutions which are going to come out of the resolutions which are going to come out of the events will make ways to policy leaders, policy makers, and we're also going to be exploring several platforms, because what we want to see the peace we're enjoying. You and I know that what we're enjoying right now in Sierra Leone is Saguin, you know, like there's always a tension going on the ground. Yeah, I mean, at the bottom. So we really want to see Sierra Leoneans coming together with all sincerity, that indeed this is the only country we're having, and we all should consider each other as one.
So is this event an open event for the general public, and where and what time?
Perfect. So it's an open event. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we you know, put out our flyers and indicated the contacts, few contacts wherein those who are interested should just RSVP, and you know, it turned out that we had a lot of people who showed interest. Unfortunately, the program is sold out, but that does not mean people will not have the opportunity of participating, because we have media partners who are going to be streaming the program live, like we have the AYV, thanks to you. We have the SLBC 98.1, and of course it's going to also be live on the Renaissance movement page. And of course we're going to be quite active on our Twitter feed. So I mean, even if you're not there, you would not even know you're not there, because you also have the opportunity of sending your comments, your opinions, you know, on the Facebook page or Twitter, which will definitely make our time to read. So the event, we actually had the Renaissance Internal Summit on Saturday, this past Saturday, wherein we took the time to reflect on what our values are, the Renaissance ethos, and of course continue to remind ourselves of our task in rebuilding and recultivating the sense of patriotism among us Sierra Leoneans, and how do we influence that. Yeah. So we also believe that the change we're seeking, we cannot achieve that change when we're outside politics. So what we're doing is to ensure that we influence political actors. So in their roles, they will exude a spirit of the Renaissance, which is to create the change where change needs to be created. Okay. So we had that internal summit on Saturday. So today is going to be a grand event, 10 o'clock prompt at the Bank Complex, King Tom.
Okay.
All right. We'll come back to you. We'll just come back. We'll come to the guests right here, Rashid and Kalilu. So as we talk about national cohesion and 60 years of Sierra Leone gaining independence, and we reflect on what we hope the next 60 years should look like. As a nation, with your organization, your office tasked with sort of reviving that patriotism in the consciousness and minds of Sierra Leoneans. So what should be the key focus? What should be the changes that government in itself need to embark on if we're to move forward in the right direction? Kalilu.
Thank you. Let me borrow from the lady from the Renaissance movement. By the way, I wish you well in this endeavor. One of the things that we hope for is Renaissance. And in our politicians and in our civil servants and our public servants. You know, some of the things that I see that we really need to work on is policy. Some of the policy in all of these areas are quite things that are missing. And not only policy, but also the attitudes of the people who are being charged with implementing these policies. These are challenges. But we talk about the police, for instance. We talk about the military. But these are Sierra Leoneans. These are recruited from amongst us. So if you have you garbage in, garbage out, they say in computer language. So if we don't look at ourselves and begin to culture ourselves, to cultivate ourselves, our mindsets, the moment people have the gun, they think they're over and above everybody else. They own the world. So if you don't tell them, this gun that I'm giving to you is to protect the people of Sierra Leone. They are the people who are buying these guns for you. They are people who have bought you this pants you're wearing. Then they begin to see themselves as superior to the people that they're actually working for. That is the challenge. Those are some of the things that we are working on now. Now, can I go out there and write a press release and criticize people? No, that's not my approach. My approach is to go to the leadership and ask for a meeting with them and tell them what is happening is not right. We want you to do something about it. Internally, we'll leave that to the civil society to take out the press releases. But I know I have my job to go to the people in authority to tell them what is not right.
Does this authority also include the authority of the president as well?
Absolutely. That's why I know the president appointed me to this position. He knows that I can say it straight to anybody.
I don't mean anyone. I mean, does this authority you're talking about in terms of calling out?
That's what I'm telling you.
Does it also include the president in calling him out?
As far as my job is concerned, I talk to anybody straight up. Yeah, I talk to everybody straight up. I advise them on what I think is not right for the civic culture of this country. That is my job. I will not come out there and tell Lamrana, this is what I said to the president, or this is what I spoke to the minister of police.
So since you have this confidence to be able to have this engagement, do we expect that you would be having this sort of advice, I would call it advice, in terms of what transpired regarding invite, no invite, lateness, no lateness? Would you be engaging the president on this? Because again, this is about speaking to the consciousness of people, raising the patriotism of people. So would you...
And getting people to become alive to their responsibilities.
Yes. So,
that's what I do.
So would you be having this discussion with the president and telling the president the fact that X failed and Y failed?
That's why I know the president follows the news media. Perhaps he's even hearing me now as I'm speaking. And I'll find an opportunity to speak to others around this issue to see where the fault lies in this. I am not saying verbatim that indeed, like the former president's press statement said, they didn't get to him until 5 o'clock. Because I don't know it as of now. I have to find out myself whether that's what happened. And what I can advise, I can advise. But at the same time, I heard my brother here, Rashid, referring to was it a consortium of political parties that came together? They said they had a letter for the president, and they decided to march along to State House. And in the event, they were able to gather a lot of hoodlums who were going out with them. That was very unnecessary in my view. They could have easily summoned me to them. Listen, Kalilu, we have a letter for the president. We want you to deliver this to the presidency. That is my job.
So that is what I want to ask Kalilu. How do you bring political leaders to a round table where they discuss issues? Like I said, I understand you have politicians as members of the board or so.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you, apart from developing curriculum and stuff, how do you bring them to the round table to discuss these critical issues from the SLPP, or possibly them having a meeting with the president and have a discussion with them on civic responsibility?
So basically, if the consortium of political parties, if their interest was to deliver a letter requesting for time to sit with the president, I can facilitate that. That's my job. But unfortunately, they chose to go and expose themselves to security forces.
But you already have them. How could them not understand that you can do that?
Are they aware of this mandate?
I don't know why they did that.
Are they aware of this opportunity
the chairman of my steering committee is the chairman of the NGC. Yeah. And we have a very good rapprochement between me and Dr. Bright. So I don't know why they chose that route. But they could have easily said, over time, everything we do, when I go to see the president and every step of the way on what we're doing, Dr. Bright is with me. And he is always my chairman. He goes there in that capacity, not as NGC.
So in the instance where they want to have this discussion with the president now, do you think that's something that is very important at this time and you can
That is something I think it has always been important for the opposition to sit with the president. That's something that's always important to the future of this country. Yeah. How do we go about it is where we differ. I don't believe it is the right way to take a match. Yeah. I mean, that's just for the media. If you really want to have something effective, send a letter through a courier, and I offer myself as a courier for that. Give me that letter. I'll take it to the presidency. This is important.
As much as you believe that it's important, will you facilitate it?
I'm saying I've already offered myself as a foot soldier.
No, not a courier again, but you, in as much as you've understood now that they want it, they want this meeting, and you agree that the meeting is important. Yeah. Is this something you can facilitate to your office?
That's something I'm willing to do any day. That's something I'm willing to do. But let me make one fundamental point here. You know, we are sitting in a situation where there are people who are troubleshooters, rabble-rousers. They always jump on the slightest opportunity. Look at what happened with the Okada rider. That was very unnecessary. Yeah? And so if you, as leaders of this country, you create opportunities for rabble-rousers, something might happen that you will even regret. So that is why I will always enjoin anybody in politics or anybody of stature in this country to always use diplomatic channels to air your grievances. You can come to the media and hear your grievances. People can listen to you. Whether they want to abide by what you say is quite another thing. But I am sure the president created this office for us to have rapprochements like this. So if they are willing.
But are people aware of this? Of this?
I'm telling you
are they aware? Are people educated enough to know that?
I'm telling you that the chairman of my steering committee is the chairman of the NGC. And he's been very pivotal. He's been very instrumental in getting us to where we are today. I can give it to him every day. He advises me in the office, outside of office, at any point. Even when we went to Canada for the OGP summit, I went with him. And he was there, and he understands this concept that we walk around. And I expect him not to allow himself to go with the wind, but I'm sure that's someone with a lot of intellect, who has a lot of experience outside of even of this country. And that's why I'm latching on him to learn from him some of these things that we can use going forward. So I expect him to come back to the drawing board so that we can begin to do these things as we have planned to do.
Let me bring Rashid quickly in. Rashid, there seems to be a broken society. From education, we saw students at IPAM, the issue that happened there. Okada riders in the streets, we saw military men brandishing AK-47 at the President's Lodge. Issues with police shooting and killing. seems society is broken. You have politicians as well disagreeing and fighting each other. How do we fix this from the civil society perspective?
Yes, it's a really Herculean task, and I am sure you laid the context clearly. And even among civil society, and I like that point, there's a division. And I think that's the unfortunate thing. I am new to civil society, so when I sit and start seeing this thing, it's a distaste, you know, sometimes. But then it should not make us lose hope, you know. And I'm sure there are a few that are really, you know, serving the nation, and they have good hearts, and we should seize those few and then make sure we make a case. But what we want to see going forward, you know, after 60 now, we are 60 and 1 day old.
Yeah, 61.
It's like the chairman of the ECOWAS really mentioned, a new Sierra Leone, a united Sierra Leone. You know, and I think that is something we can achieve if only first we are sincere. It has to be sincerity largely. And sincerity in the office of the president, sincerity in ministers, sincerity in politicians, past politicians, sincerity with political parties. They all have to take the nation's interest first. That's the biggest problem.
Who should play this role? Who should play this role to bring? Parliament has their own issues. They're fighting on TV. Civil society, like you said, are fighting. Political parties, even religious leaders. Who should we listen to? Who should bring people together?
I agree with you. And you mentioned the religious leaders, because again, that is the place perhaps where we will have had the meeting points to then say, but then again, the politics is sapping in.
So is Sierra Leone redeemable at this point?
Very
Since there's so much division from every front. Is Sierra Leone redeemable at this point?
So some people believe, in fact, at that stage where everything seems to be collapsing, that's the opportunity, the opportune time to really make fences. So it's also a nice way to turn around. It's a nice place to turn around when you get to the worst of places. So we should not lose hope, in that regard.
But someone has to take the lead.
Yes.
So who or where should that come from?
I think let's be fair and be frank. Leadership is key. All right. So when we are getting all of these problems now, and leadership not about just the president, as head of the religious council, what are you determined to do this era? Head of the political party, chairman and leader. So the leadership on all fronts, they should really pull the trigger, get the people on board, because honestly, our nation is very divided. And the division is not much on political lines, but it's even sapping to now ethnic and regional lines. And slowly it will gravitate to religious lines. And that will just finish us. Because that's the only thing that's holding us now. We can still be in church and mosque and just for one spray and laugh. But when we leave that environment, people are conscious again about their division, their tribes, and their political
So there's a leadership gap in Sierra Leone.
Yes, so leadership is key at this moment. It could also be leadership from the civil society organizations.
It is.
All their heads, how we could come on board and just forget about politics for once and address the issues as they are. Like he has agreed with me this morning, we have named and shamed where we should. That's frankness. The presidency office delayed. That is, we should follow
the foreign affairs mission.
All right, whoever was responsible. But I'm sure also we cannot, okay, let's leave that. We cannot run away from that. Then, of course, the office of the former president, for escalating, that was an error. All right, he could have responded by private channels as he received the call or whatever. And then later on, he had the time to explain. When perhaps the issue came to, after the celebration and everything, they're discussing the issues. Okay, well, let me explain now, so that I cannot be misconstrued. So the timeliness of the response and how it's escalated was something also we should question. So that frankness should be seen by all of us.
So should we be expecting the consortium of civil societies to engage the office of the former president clearly on this grave error that could have had a really negative impact on yesterday's commemoration event, and also engaging the government on its own error in what looks like the former president being deliberately sidelined based on the back and forth now we are seeing. Should we expect the consortium, the civil society, to engage both parties on this issue?
This is an opportunity, and I will definitely
talk with a couple of civil society organizations I know who are really passionate about these issues. So let's see how we could build a front to engage. Perhaps even it's a time for us to even have perhaps a program where these two gentlemen will be there. We can initiate that. If it's not going to happen, perhaps by luck or by chance, we can do a program where we have the president and the former president sit together, and then we create a conversation where at least we could talk about national issues at the very least for once.
Okay.
And let me just perhaps maybe just zero down with where we are now. In 1 month from now, I think in May, June, we are having the UPI, Universal Periodic Review, and Sierra Leone is going to be reviewed again for the 3rd time. So it's a very critical period we are in, and our human rights credentials, our scorecards will be assessed by the UN, and then the high report will be out. So I think we need to have some quiet at this moment and ensure that we reflect and we trust that that process goes on peacefully and our scorecard comes out clean. Because if we continue with this tension, the division, the ECOWAS chairperson has picked it up as he's leaving, that in fact the nation needs to be united. So these are all not good things down the line for our scorecard and the human rights record. So my opinion would be, let's build a United Sierra Leone going forward. The political divide has to be dissipated. Of course, there will be political divide. But to now escalate that, to now defeat national interest.
Let there be political competition.
Yes. Khalil, I'll ask you same. With the seeming divide in every sector, how do we, who should take the lead, and how do we do it in bringing people together from every sector?
We all have the responsibility.
Even football,
yeah. So football is supposed to be a beautiful game where we just enjoy. But again, the game has started and people are coming together. My Bo Rangers is getting on ahead of all of them. So, but again, these are serious things that we need to look at. If we are not even thinking about ourselves now, what about our children?
Yeah.
What kind of future do we want to leave for them? So I agree with Rashid. We have a responsibility. And as civil society, let us start with ourselves. I mean, my institution is one between government and civil society. And I'm willing to work with all of you for us to begin to have an inner look at ourselves. What are we really advocating for? What are the things that we are doing? So when we agree on these things, and then we can begin to approach the politicians who have a vested interest in all of these things, And somebody talked about the winner take all thing. That is something that's killing us as a nation. I mean, I just saw the video that IGR put out. I mean, the people out there, I mean, they have a clear mind about these things.
Yeah.
They have a clear mind about.
And you can imagine from that level.
From that level,
even understand.
people have a clear mind. They understand what is going on. They know that we are just using them for our own aggrandizement. So if we begin to organize ourselves as civil society, then we can approach our people. The moment we educate those people, the politicians are toast. Because when they go now to lie to them, say Omeni or Temne, the people know that you are not actually fighting for the Temnes, you are not actually fighting for the Mendes, you are fighting for yourself and your family exclusively. So we have not done that yet. So we all pander to the politicians because we want to line our pockets or something else until and unless we begin to look ourselves outside of the fat cars that we drive, outside of the other things that we do, and begin to focus on the things that actually drive us forward as a nation. We are still going to have those challenges. But I can pick up on where you said, let us look at ourselves as civil society and all of us are advocacy groups. When we agree on what we should do, then we can face the politicians.
Okay, thank you very much. This discussion will continue.
Words, Taria.
Yeah, Taria. How can people be part of this program? How maybe I'm home watching or through social media. How can they contribute if they have questions or suggestions they want to make?
Oh, okay. So I said we're going to we have a couple of media as partners who are going to stream the program live, and of course we can entertain comments from those members of the public. It's going to be streamed on our Renaissance socials, Facebook pages.
So they can drop their comments there.
So they can drop their comments. So it's our first summit, and also it's going to be a time to recognize posthumously one of our very outstanding leaders, Constance Cummins John, who happened to be the first female first African woman to have become a mayor. So yeah, so we're going to do that, and of course that will serve as an inspiration for those in leadership to be people driven, to be service driven, because we want to continue to use more of our leaders as role models, you know, to inspire the generations of young Sierra Leonean leaders.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and all the best with today's event. We'll definitely be bringing that live, bringing it to people so that they can be a part of the conversation. And thanks as well to the guests here for just basically, you know, going through on yesterday's event, celebration of 60 years, and hopefully what needs to be done to move Sierra Leone forward for the next 60 years. But this is where we draw down the curtains on today's edition of the program, which, as always, is brought to you by Rokel Commercial Bank. The quote today comes from the president, and he says that if we are able to stop begging for money, if we can take care of ourselves, then African leaders will have a voice that is forceful and will be listened to. And that's from retired Brigadier Dr.
That's our aspiration.
Exactly, aspiration. And with that quote, I want to believe now that the focus has changed in local investment as opposed to foreign direct investment that we've seen.
And the Ghanaian president said it yesterday, that we have all what it takes. We have the human resource, we have the materials to do trade between ourselves in the sub-region than go to Asia and America and Europe. So there is that wave of you know, ownership. We hope will benefit from it.
Absolutely.
But we say thanks to Rokel Commercial Bank for supporting this program, and to our viewers who've been with us these 2 hours, and our guests as well. Wake Up Sierra Leone returns tomorrow at 8 a.m. with Samuel Wise Bangura and Antonia Award. Till some other time, we're wishing Renaissance as well the very best. And don't forget, that program will be live on AYV Television and our Facebook page as well. I am Amadou Lamwanaba, thanking you for being with us, and do have a lovely morning.
My name is Stella Bangura. Stay safe.
Yes, subscribe. You always dey watch we program them, but you not subscribe yet to the channel. All wetin you get for do, press this red subscribe button, and then you come over here and press this bell. To the bell option, press this one with all. It don't done. It no get for cost you anything. When you do this, na sign for show say you dey support we for make we do more. Thank you for we your help we for share this program. Yeah, God bless you.